Hello everyone, welcome to the Gameweek 2 pod of the FPL Wire powered by Dreamset Go. I'm your host Zophar and I'm joined as always by India's reigning FPL number 1 late riser. How did your game week go, Ella?
Why did you have to ask me first, off?
I
It
get it.
was a poor start to the season. I got around 43 points, sitting at around 3.4 million. But it's nice to look at it in hindsight and say it was a mistake. It was a very high risk gamble that didn't pay off, and I wasn't expecting the Salah of 3 years ago to show up, but he did. Outside of that, my captain Werner didn't do too much. I wish he was put on goal earlier by RLC or Barkley, but that didn't happen. DCL did me proud. Outside of that, I'm not too panicky or too worried about my team. I think my team looks decent for next week. Hoping to cover up some ground.
And we also have FPL Twitter stats guru Bigmanbakar. How did your team do this week?
Hi, Zophar. It was nice. I got 75 points, so I'll take that as a solid enough start. I was lucky enough to have Salah captain and Justin in my team, so they were the two guys who contributed mainly to my score. Sadly, I
Don't
did
say
not
lucky.
have.
Don't say lucky enough. It was a good decision that paid off.
There's a lot of debate about that with the
I call
penalties.
it I
Yeah.
call it lucky because of the penalties, but yeah, I
He
mean it
also took
worked
8
out. So
shots,
I'm,
so
I'm
I
glad.
don't think personally it was lucky. He took 8 shots, so it's just a matter of probability.
I don't either. I thought he totally deserved that hat trick.
So
So yeah,
yep.
it's a nice enough start, and I'm glad to start off on that note. How about you?
I got 71 points. I think just four less. We have more or less similar teams. I think it's primarily Robertson that was a differentiator. So I got 71
Yeah.
points again with the bulk coming from Salah, Justin, and Oba. So let's move on now to the next week. Now, a brief introduction on DSG. DSG is a global portal for fans to gain access to sporting events across the world. Accommodation, flight tickets, hospitality, stadium visits, everything can be tailored exactly to your requirements. They also do celebrity experiences, which include master classes with your favorite sports celebrity, or something as simple as birthday shoutouts. Visit dreamsetgo.co for more. The FPL Wire is a part of the Fantasy Scout Network, and all stats used in this podcast are taken from the FFS members area. Please sign up if you haven't already.
And today on the pod, I'll just take you guys through what we're going to be talking about. We're going to do a game by game, just go through the observations that we made in game week 1. A lot of questions coming in for what to do with the Spurs assets. We're going to be discussing that. We're going to be talking about a lot of people are contemplating selling Mo Salah, and those without him are wondering what to do about Mo. So we're going to discuss that. We're going to be talking about which teams are showing early signs in terms of the whipping boys. We're going to discuss the pros and cons of a Game Week 3 wildcard. We're going to be talking about, as always, 3 teams in depth. We're going to be talking about Everton, Chelsea, and Liverpool this week. We're going to have a little discussion on the budget strikers. The fixtures we're going to be looking at closely are United Palace, Southampton Spurs, Everton West Brom, and Arsenal West Ham, followed by our usual clean sheets, captains, top 3 stats from the big man, our differentials, and our teams, followed by the Q&A.
Yep. So let's jump in right away to the game week 1 observation with the fixture that I really enjoyed the most this weekend. I would say even more than the Chelsea game, Liverpool Leeds. So
It
my
was a great game. It was
It
genuinely
was
a
a
good
great.
game.
I loved how attacking Leeds were, how forward the fullbacks got. I think we were debating Dallas and Ayling. I think both are good choices. It's just a matter of picking one and sticking with him till the end of the season. The Liverpool fullbacks, especially TA, I thought was quite rusty. That own goal header was quite funny. I bet he was glad that was VAR'd out. Robbo was quite attacking. He seems to be getting in the box a lot more, I think, than last time. I haven't seen Robbo break into the box as much. Another interesting
What
thing.
are your thoughts on Leeds? I think we'll deep dive into Liverpool when we're doing the team by team. Thoughts on Leeds?
I think one interesting thing about Leeds, I think they're a system-based team rather than a team that places emphasis on individuals. So I don't think they will have a talisman per se. So I think the points are going to be spread around. I think out of all the midfield picks, I would probably go with Harrison. But we have to keep in mind that he's going to miss game week 4 since he's on loan from Man City. The defense, I think the centre back Ben White, I think he's a big miss for them. I think they were defensively much more leaky without him. And I think Mitrovic can get something against them next week.
I don't know how you think Mitrovic can get something, because I thought Fulham were absolutely toothless. But just my observations on Leeds, a couple of things. I thought Harrison reinforced what I saw when I just saw that all the goals Leeds scored this season video. And he seems like the runner who's assigned to get on the end of things. And I think why that works is because Costa, who's on the other side, he's a more of a creative assister kind of a midfielder. And Harrison is the runner who's assigned to get on the end of things. Apart from that, I think in a period of 2, 3, 4 game weeks, we'll end up seeing who the first choice striker is for Leeds because Bielsa's isn't known to rotate. And I feel like whoever the striker is at 6 million, I feel like it'll be Rodrigo because they spent a lot of money on him. He's going to end up getting a lot of good chances, and I'm interested at 6 million in the Leeds striker.
TFF, what are your thoughts on the Leeds strikers, especially?
Yeah, I agree with the late riser when he says that the time to look at Leeds strikers is probably 3 or 4 weeks from now, because right now we're not really sure whether Bamford's going to start or whether Rodrigo is going to come in. The problem with Bamford is even if he starts, he's going to get taken off around the hour mark.
Exactly.
But yeah, even historically, even last year, they got like 40, 44 chances for their strikers, and Bamford missed like a huge, significant majority of them. So that tells me that they're a side which will provide good service to their striker. And once one of them does sort of nail down a regular position, that tells me that he's going to be a good option to have. For now, over the next 3 or 4 game weeks, I still think that the best pick out of the Leeds team is their fullback, probably Ayling over Dallas. But even Dallas, he got the assist last time, so I'm pretty convinced that both of them are good picks.
Yeah, I think VVD should have got the assist for that one.
I'm very glad that the next game is against Fulham because the game against Liverpool isn't indicative of how that Leeds team is going to be. And, they're well known for dominating possession. And I expect Fulham to park the bus. So I want to see how they play because they have a high intensity possession-based pressing style. So I think if people are waiting to jump on to Leeds assets, I feel like the next game gives you a good picture in terms of what to expect.
Yeah, because then they play after that Sheffield and then Man City. I can't wait for that Man City game.
Yeah.
That's going to be great.
I mean, one thing we have to sort of keep in mind while we're talking about Leeds, Leeds attack is the fact that they were very clinical. They didn't sort of create too many big chances, but they were extremely clinical when it came to taking them. So, I mean, that's why I'm saying that I'm willing to wait and see, because I'm not exactly sure what to expect from them, just based on one game week. I mean,
exactly.
I know they scored 3 goals versus Liverpool, but I still don't know whether they can do this on a consistent basis against the Premier League side. So that's what I'm sort of looking forward to seeing in the coming weeks.
Yeah, it's good that you bring that up because actually I want to tell all our listeners that so far we've just had 1 game week of data. We don't know if that's the norm or that's the anomaly. Like, don't draw conclusive conclusions just based on 1 week data. Be a little patient.
Agreed. Yeah. Moving on to Fulham versus Arsenal. Arsenal looked quality. I think they're finally now flowing under Arteta, and I'm really happy for Arsenal fans. I have a lot of friends who are Gunners, and every time before they played any big team, it used to be that how many are we going to lose by? Are we going to lose by 3? Are we going to lose by 6? It must be so refreshing to now going into any fixture in the league believing that you can win. So I'm glad for Arsenal fans out there. I think Auba captaincy is an easy decision after watching this game and the West Ham game. He could have had like a lot more even against Fulham. Now, regarding going back to the point you made earlier about Fulham being toothless, I thought in the first half they put in some decent crosses, but Kamara didn't really attack that area a lot. To me, what that indicated is a team that's specifically built to play to Mitrovic's strength. So that is why I still feel he has potential in the next 2 fixtures, that's Leeds and Aston Villa. I think those 2 games is where we can really assess what he can do.
You thought that, I saw that, and I thought that they pose some sort of threat for the first 5-10 minutes. I thought Arsenal had complete control of the game after that slight jitter at the start.
Yep.
Just on that game, I'm really happy for Arsenal fans as well. A lot of my friends think I'm a closet Arsenal fan because I've always liked Robin, Van Persie, Giroud, etc., etc. Yeah. I think Arteta is a good manager. They have good defensive stats, but I'm waiting before drawing any conclusions because I wonder if it was Arsenal's strength or Fulham's toothlessness, because I don't think like Fulham challenged them at all. So yeah, they look good defensively. Yeah, they look good in attack. I think I saw the stats that they had the highest non-pen XG amongst all teams this game week. So they're creating a fair bit. We'll be talking about captaincy later. I think it's a debate between the Arsenal guys and the United guys and Salah based on how he look. Your thoughts, big man?
Yeah, Fulham, I mean, without Mitrovic, they basically look toothless, like you pointed out. I'd be more interested to, hold on to Mitrovic for the Villa game because I expect Fulham to be more attacking at home than they were against Arsenal. I expect like good things from them against Villa. I don't think they'll do much against Leeds again. I mean, even last season they were 17th for goals away. That tells me that they're far more attacking at home than they are away. And Leeds are, they're a solid defensive side. So I'm not exactly sure whether Mitrovic will do much again this week. I'm like more confident about owning a Leeds defender than Mitrovic personally. But yeah, I'll probably hold on to him for the Villa game because I think that's a game that might be tailor-made for him.
What are your thoughts on Gabriel's debut? Do you think it looked good?
Yep. I think he looked really good. And like I was gonna come to this later, but like Arsenal's defense is, I mean, it surprised me. I did say last in the fixtures post restart, their defense wasn't that great, particularly in terms of conceding shots. But against Fulham, they were extremely tight. And I mean, other than that Kamara chance early on that they conceded, which basically came from error, they were like absolutely perfect.
Yeah, just before we move on to the next game, I want to give a huge shout out to Granit Xhaka. I thought he's become a key component
Respect.
in Mark Arteta's team. He's playing really well creatively and doing a lot of work in defense. So I think Arteta's done well there. Let's talk about our next game, Palace versus Saints. What are your thoughts, big man? We'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, so I mean, this was a game where I had actually hyped up Che Adams and Danny Ings, and it didn't exactly go according to plan. I was an Adams owner myself, but I think the Saints were unlucky not to score more. I mean, Gaita had a great game. He denied Che Adams from almost point blank range from a great volley, and I think 9 times out of 10 that goes in, and then even Ings had a great chance at the end. But another thing that's worth pointing out is that I noticed how attacking Kyle Walker Peters was in the game. He had like 28, 29 touches in the final third, which was great from a Saints fullback. Other than that, I mean, their defense was kind of shaky. Zaha could have had more. I expected this from Palace. But yeah, I'm still holding on to Adams, hoping that he'll get me something this week. I'm not sort of too put off by Saints, despite the result.
Yeah, I feel like it was just an early first game jitter, and I thought Palace played tactically well. In fact, I'm beginning to think about whether Southampton, because Southampton are more used to pressing high rather than
I think we've had some technical difficulties with these guys over there. We should have them back within a second. Can you hear me, guys?
worried about their assets. I thought it was just one game. Since they've shown enough quality post the restart, I wouldn't be too worried. I wouldn't be too impatient with their assets.
Yeah. Same.
We had some technical issues for the last 10 seconds, guys. You guys cut out. So, Pranil, could you just repeat what you said?
I was just talking about Palace versus Saints, and I thought that Palace played the game really well tactically. I thought Saints might have a problem, and I think they're more suited to playing against teams that take the initiative rather than they themselves taking the initiative because they like to press high, etc. Palace didn't. Palace played to the Saints' weaknesses, and they said, you know what, we're going to give you the ball, go on and show us what you can do. And they didn't have enough creativity within their ranks to take advantage. And Palace, being Palace, sat back, were compact, were organized, and it worked in Roy's favor. But I wouldn't worry too much about this result. I feel like Saints will come back. They've shown us enough proof post the restart. So I wouldn't be coming to many conclusions after this game.
Do you guys think they play this high line against Spurs as well? I think Jose can exploit it, and I don't think they'll be as naive again because they don't have the centre backs really. I think to do it. I think they played Vestergaard, who really can't cope with that sort of line. And I think to a certain extent, if you remember, Stephens took a knock. He didn't seem the same to me after that in terms of pace. I think he was playing within himself a little bit. I think that maybe had something to do with it as well.
And also, I was talking to Lucy, who's a Saints fan on Twitter, and she said that they were instructed, the Saints fullbacks were instructed to move further up the pitch. I don't think they'll be doing the same against Spurs, especially with Doherty bombing on the flank.
That's a good point actually. Definitely one guy has to contain Doherty.
Exactly.
Let's move on to the next
West Ham
one.
versus Newcastle.
Yep. So
You start us off, Zoff?
Yep. I was impressed by Newcastle. I don't know whether it was West Ham big bad, but I was quite impressed by Newcastle. I think they've done some excellent transfer business. Hendrick, Wilson, Fraser, Lewis. I think apart from Chelsea, they've probably had the best window. But I'm interested to see now how offensive. Like, is this just Steve Bruce because he was playing against West Ham, or is he going to go this offensive when he plays United, Spurs? That's really something I want to watch out for. So I was also impressed by Souček. I wasn't really a fan of him prior. I was wondering why everyone's picking a defensive midfielder, but he had a lot of chances. That being said, when Haller came on, the formation changed a little bit. Haller and Antonio played up and Souček played a bit deeper. So I'm interested to see how that shapes out. And another thing on Newcastle also, so they started out in the shape of a 4-3-3 with ASM and Wilson playing either side of Carroll. As the game evolved, Hendrick came inside and it switched more of a 4-4-2. So Almiron, I think, is also a threat to ASM. I'm a little bit worried about ASM's game time going forward. I know he's very key to ball progression, but when you put in Fraser in there, Almiron, they have some options.
Yeah, good point. I'm worried about him too. I think the case with ASM is he looks, because he's flashy and he runs around and is able to dribble past players, he looks better than... He's a good player, but he's not as good an FPL player because I feel like the end product is not with him. This is again just one game week data. Let's not draw conclusions, but I'm really impressed by Wilson. I felt like Bruce instructed them to create a lot of chances for Wilson. Wilson was at the end of almost every attack, and at 6.5, I'm interested, especially if Newcastle keep doing decent work in attack. What are your thoughts, big man?
Yeah, I mean, this is a team which I think is built to Wilson's strengths, and I was kind of pissed off at myself for removing him from my draft at the end. I had him that Saturday morning, and I got rid of him for Mitrovic for some reason.
Ironically, because you think he didn't start.
Yeah, because the thing is, I actually did some research on it, and there were like rumors flying around that Wilson was only trained for like a couple of days, and there's a chance he might not start. So just to be safe, I went with Mitrovic because Mitrovic started 40 games last season. Only once he got subbed, that was due to injury. So I was like, he's as nailed as they come. At least he'll start.
Why didn't he start? Was it the case of fitness?
The next thing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the next thing I find out is that Mitrovic isn't starting, and then I'm like, welcome back, FPL. I've missed you. So
damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, but yeah, this is a team which is tailor-made for Wilson. Everything is going through him, as Eight Rises said. West Ham were really impressive post-restart. I mean, in terms of both their defensive and offensive numbers, but against Newcastle, their numbers were like borderline shocking. So I mean, that makes me... I don't want to sort of generalize that early because it's just one game and the sample size is small, but that makes me wonder whether it was just the fact that they had extra motivation at the end, which came into play, and they'll sort of revert to the norm again.
I also wonder if something is wrong in the dressing room there. We saw Noble speak up on Twitter against Yangana moving to West Brom, etc. I don't think that spells good for the atmosphere in the dressing room, etc. as well. I actually wanted to ask you guys, because I didn't end up seeing this game. I just saw the highlights. How was the West Ham defense? Was it actually incredibly poor, or was it Newcastle playing well?
It was actually a pretty open game. I think both teams had like 10 shots in the box. I'll show you guys the stats later.
So, all right.
Yeah, I mean, it's important not to draw early conclusions, but yes, I wasn't impressed by what I saw from West Ham. They were appalling.
All right. Yep. Okay, next move back to the next game, the statistical anomaly. Let's talk about West Brom versus Leicester. Why don't you kick us off, big man?
Yeah, so this was a game I watched 90 minutes of, and I mean, I was really impressed by how attacking Castagna was from Leicester. He got the goal at the end, but I like the look of him early on. Justin, even though he got the assist, he wasn't really pushing forward. I mean, He had one penalty area touch all game, and that turned out to be an assist. So that tells me it was just a fluke. And he looked really uncomfortable playing on the left, and he was exploited time and time again by the wing back Furlong. Um, Vardy was invisible all game. What happens is that he gets two chances from penalties, he puts them away. Leicester didn't create much for him. I mean, all the attacks were coming from Harvey Barnes. Harvey Barnes was really impressive in terms of his overall play, but his finishing was really poor. I mean, any better finisher would have scored 2 goals at least. Um, so yeah, West Brom didn't sort of look great going forward. I still worry about their attack because they don't have any sort of recognized strikers who are gonna score goals for them. Pereira looked like isolated, and I don't really like West Brom from what I saw of them.
What are your thoughts of?
I think they gave up a lot of high quality big chances, and if not for the keeper, I think they would have conceded a lot more. I really know I'm going to target their defense like the next few fixtures. I think they're probably as ill equipped as Fulham.
I like that you say that. I have DCL primed and waiting in my team for them next week.
Yep.
Anything else to add? I don't have anything to add. I've always liked Harvey Barnes as a player, and we saw in that game
It's his
where I
finishing
feel
that's
like
a problem. He always gets the chances into just a composure that seems to be lacking.
also age, right? He's a young guy. He's going to develop. He's going to improve. He's already adding so much to Leicester's game. So yeah, he's the pick I like, if any, from West Brom.
I think Madison should be back next week as well. I saw him come on as a sub.
Yeah, I wonder what Rogers will do, because I thought Prait had a good game, and he's generally always looked pretty decent when I've seen him play for Leicester. So I wonder what Rogers does with his team. But I feel like Prait is most likely to lose his spot
Yep.
to make way for Madison.
Yep.
We'll skip Spurs and Everton because we're going to talk about their assets in detail a little later. Let's move on to Wolves versus Sheffield, and why don't you kick us off, Zophar?
It was a great game to watch. Actually, didn't think Sheffield would be so open. I actually thought Sheffield would actually give Wolves a tough game. It was nice to see Size score. I didn't end up picking him finally in my draft, but sort of some redemption there in terms of how good they looked. But in general, I thought they started really well. Jimenez had a lot of chances. Martial doesn't look like he's going to offer much on the left side, and Traore is now a wing back, so that's a bit of a bummer that you can't really pick their wing backs anymore. But Saiz looks a good pick. I was surprised to see Jota benched, seeing Podence
Yes,
up
so was
there.
I.
So it looks like Wolves are evolving. They're a different team a little bit to that sense, and maybe I think they'll be more attacking this year than they were over the restart.
Yeah, also, I feel like this might make a difference in their defense also, because you mentioned to me while we were having a chat that they also looked a little more open at the back than they generally do. So it's worth monitoring that.
They actually had a lot of chances, Sheffield. I think their Size cleared one over the line. There are 2-3 chances, and I think it will make a difference, right? Because you have Traore now playing right wing back versus Doherty, who's a natural defender. So I think they will definitely be more open.
Exactly. It's worth monitoring them because people who might be looking to wildcard early, or people are looking to jump on Wolves assets in game week 3, and there's so much to see there. I just like to add a couple of things on top of what you said. Podence, I feel, is a really, really good player. I think he's nifty, but I'm still worried about what formation Nuno is going to be using on a regular basis. I was very surprised to see Jota benched, like you, and I feel like against City, Nuno might revert to 3 in the midfield and 2 up top, which might see Jimenez partnered by Jota again. So it's a great game because it gives us a different kind of game to assess Wolves and what Nuno does with that team. Outside of that, I was happy and sad. I tweeted about Raul Jimenez because I had him for around 30 game weeks last season, and I was like, it was like I was watching my ex was in a really good relationship at the moment because he just looks so electric, so good. And I wonder sometimes, we overcomplicate things looking for a slight gain, the slight advantage in FPL when there are obvious picks like Jimenez staring your face. So I'm looking to get him on pretty soon, but then I have 3 good strikers. I don't know who to sell. But yeah, Jimenez, solid pick. He looks good, has a great run of fixtures, and he looks really sharp.
Yep. TFF, anything to add?
Yes, I mean Wolves are a team I love watching. I'm definitely interested in their assets for Game Week 3. I mean, Podence is one later as already talked about. There's Jimenez. But the fixtures, man, I mean, West Ham, Fulham, Leeds, Newcastle, Crystal Palace, that's a dreamy run post Game Week 3. So I'm definitely jumping on them. Their defense was decent again. Sheffield United they kind of worry me because I mean even post restart they were top for big chances conceded, um, and they were only sort of kept afloat last season by the fact that they had an outstanding goalkeeper. I mean, Dean Henderson had the second best XG prevented. I don't think Ramsdale is of the same quality. I do think that they will regress this year because of their defensive sort of frailties. They don't have the best attack, so I mean they might struggle this year, and that is what concerns me when I watch them.
I also think what happened when Builder came into the division, the entire system that he had was new. People
Yep.
didn't know how to tackle such a division. Now everybody's seen them, played them twice, and they know what to expect from Sheffield. So managers might have a better plan against them. That's another thought that I have in my
Definitely.
head.
That's definitely a valid point.
We'll move to your boys now.
Yep.
Brighton versus Chelsea. We'll have a deeper look at Chelsea later. So what are your thoughts on Brighton?
I thought Brighton looked good. Lamptey was very attacking. Again, he's somebody I didn't want Chelsea to sell, but we have James and Aspie in that position, so it was likely that he was probably going to leave. But I think the system really suits him. As playing as a right wing back, he gets a lot more forward than March does on the other side. So I still don't fancy anyone in terms of their attack. But in terms of defense, they look very organized. I think they will get some clean sheets. The first few fixtures are probably one to avoid, but from game week 5 onwards, I think Lamptey especially is a great pick.
All right. Your thoughts, big man?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Zophar. I mean, game week 5 onwards, I'll look at them. Before that, I have zero interest in Brighton.
Okay. If people are looking for a rotation, actually, if Lamptey manages to keep space, there was a thought, there was a little worry in terms of, Brighton having a lot of defenders, and they bought the Netherlands guy who's playing in the same position as Lamptey, but he looked like Brighton's best player, and he looks an absolute class act. I was digging into some stats, and in the last season, in the second half of last season, Lamptey was in the top 5 defenders for chances created per 90, and he was keeping the likes of
Yeah.
Trent, James, and Robertson company. So I like the player. He's a class act, and I like what I saw of Brighton. I thought White is a good addition to that defense. I also thought that Brighton played a fair bit. They were confident. I think they kept around 55 to 60% possession. If I'm not wrong, one of the teams I have down to improve this season, and I don't think we can look at a game against them as a runaway fixture anymore.
Do you
Yeah,
think
another
These-
thing I'd like to point out here is that Bissouma looked decent as well. I mean,
Yeah.
for 4.5, he was in and around the edge of the box. So, I mean, in weeks where one of the main starters of our teams doesn't play, he can be a decent sub. I think he's decent for 4.5. He might get the odd goal.
Yep,
All
he,
right.
did,
Yeah,
he
I
got into the
agree.
box yesterday quite a few times.
Yeah. I have him as my 4.5, and I'm happy with that at the moment.
I'm interested in the point you made at the end, saying that they're not really a team we can target. Because last year, I think they were one of the best teams to target. Do you remember what Jo wrote in his article?
Exactly.
So that's an interesting observation there.
Yeah, it's worth monitoring for the next 2-3 games, because we can argue that Chelsea weren't full strength, and I thought Lampard made some terrible decisions. More on that later. But if they have a couple of tough games next, we can judge. Because what Gio also wrote, our friend, in his captaincy article, he got the second highest captaincy points amongst all FPL players last season, as he liked captaining people against Brighton, because Brighton tended to play. They didn't tend to park the bus, which is what worked for the premium attacker. So it's something worth monitoring, whether they're a targetable defense or not.
Definitely.
All right, we'll now move on to our first hot topic of the day, in terms of what to do with Spurs assets. Why don't you kick us off again?
Let's start with the defense. The defense did not look inspiring, but at the same time, it's not really an area you'd want to spend transfers on. I would still hold them for the next 4 weeks. They have good fixtures. You'd give them a run of games to deliver. I think Doherty is still a good pick, as we discussed. He was still venturing forward. He was very unlucky not to score. That being said, the entire left side was left of Everton. All their attacks were focused on the space behind Doherty. So it's definitely something that teams are noticing. And I don't know how much freedom he's going to be given going forward. Something to monitor. I think midfield attack, I think Ali is somebody I want to talk about in detail. After you guys put forth your views, we can have a discussion with Ali whether to keep or sell.
I don't have anything to add in terms of the defense. Again, I agree. You don't need to jump the gun. Jose teams will show good pedigree in defense. We can, I think, move into the midfield and talk about the game here.
So you're an Ali
Go on.
owner. Tell me, what are your thoughts on Ali before I give mine? LR, you let me know. What do you think about
my
him?
my thoughts, I won't. So my thoughts on the game was, I was kind of baffled by Jose's substitution, because I thought after Ali was subbed off in the second half, Spurs created nothing. It was a write-off game, and Everton were really comfortable. This wasn't the case in the first half. Everton dominated, looked in control, had a bunker quotation, but I think Jose set them up for this. I think Spurs had the better chances in the first half. If you remember, Ali was close when Son
Yep.
played him through. Doherty had a really good chance, and I thought Ali was finding good spaces. And he's been playing with Kane and Son for a while, so he's got a nice
Yep.
understanding and tuning with them. So I feel like maybe he didn't press as much as Jose wanted him to. Something of that sort, because it baffled me, and I thought. Uh, Jose could have nicked the game if he held his nerve and kept Ali in there. I mean, Everton played well, but Everton didn't create as many good chances
Yep.
in the first half.
I think
They
there was only
they
two big chances.
Yeah, the second half Everton dominated once Sissoko came on. I don't understand why, and I'm waiting to see what happens in the midweek game,
Yep.
or whether
I think he goes
Ali's
strong
just a
in the midweek game. I think earlier on you'd probably say if he won that game, he might have rotated midweek. But I think now we're going to see a first choice lineup midweek.
Yep. I agree. And also, I kind of like the fixture for Spurs next game week, so I wouldn't be very keen to jump. Also, another important fact is Spurs depended a lot on Lo Celso for the creative. I think he's a really important player in that team. I feel like he's Eriksen's unnamed replacement, and if he's in the team, Spurs will look a lot better generally. So wait for Lo Celso news. Wait to see what happens midweek, and then take a call
Yep.
on your Spurs assets.
Yep.
And the game might suit them, because, like you mentioned, like we spoke about earlier, Saints will have a high line, and I think Jose will like that because he likes playing on the counter.
Yep. Jose teams like that. What about you,
Yeah,
TFF?
yeah. I was going to counter that. I mean, the defense is where I personally invested. I have Dyer in my team. I didn't go for the Spurs attackers. I wrote in my thread last week that I personally think that the Spurs attack is a bit overrated in the FPL community. I say that because I find it very hard personally to predict when Spurs are going to fire and when they aren't. Um, and I mean, again, the Southampton game looks like a decent game on paper, but I mean, I have a feeling that this is one of the games where Southampton might win, and Spurs might struggle again. So I'm not exactly sure. If I owned an attacker, particularly Ali, I'd probably look to sell. Um,
Would
Kane
you would you
didn't
jump for anyone in the same price bracket?
in the same one. I'd consider James for cheaper. He's the one I'd
Fair.
look at personally. But in terms of defense, I just hold the defense. I won't touch them. Even though I expect Spurs to concede this week, I just think the defense is worth, clinging on to, because I like spending my transfers in attack because they have higher upside, as you say,
Yeah.
late riser. And yeah, Ali is the one I'd look to sell. If I had Son, I'd probably hold because he's going to play on the left, and Doherty is going to be attacking. I don't think Mourinho is going to instruct him to hold back because that's how he likes playing. Even with Aurier last season, he was ridiculously attacking. He plays like a wing back. I don't think Doherty is going to be instructed to play in a back four. He's going to basically be part of the midfield. So I mean, yeah, against Walker Peters, I think Son can have some joy as well because Walker Peters is attacking as well. So yeah, I'd probably hold on to Spurs
Yeah.
assets. If I had Kane, I might have looked to sell him for Martial, but yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, good you mentioned Son, because I noticed he wasn't making so many infield runs in the game week 30 to 38 period last season. He was much closer to the goal. He was much more aggressive in the terms of runs he was making, which I quite liked in the Spurs game in the first half.
Yep. Yep. He was the main creative outlet, the crosses he was putting in. But in general, so what really is now raising my alarm bells about Spurs in general are Jose's post-match comments. He said that press was lazy. He made it say that these many players had COVID. I mean, it was all the excuses had come out. So in general, I think the mood around the Spurs camp is very disturbing. I think there's something not right there. I watched the
Yeah.
latest episode of the documentary and the way he's pushing them. I don't think he's able to get the reaction he wants. So in general, I think there's a mood of pessimism there, which
And
kind
generally,
of,
also none of the fans have taken to him really that much. I was spending some time on the Spurs pods, just doing some research, and I'd say about 75-80% of them have no belief in him. There's already a thread in terms of who's going to be our next manager.
Yep, yep. I mean, he's getting I think because there's no crowd, he's getting away with a lot. I think there was a crowd in the stadium. By the end of it, they would be booing. So he is getting away with a lot. I think I will be selling Ali, and probably for James. But yeah, midweek is something I'm going to monitor. If he scores a brace midweek, then I might hold. But as of now, I'm more inclined to get rid of him.
All right. Now, our next hot
This is
topic.
all you, Ella. The Mo Salah question.
What's your opinion on that? Let's start off with you, though.
Should we?
No, because I know for you he's a season keeper, and
Yeah.
I don't think anything's changed there.
Absolutely, because he's somebody I would actually like to perma. Because my best seasons have always been where I found a perma captain, Captain Van Persie every week, Captain Suarez every week, Captain Lampard. So I'm hoping this can be the sort of season where Mo becomes that player you can captain every, because that reduces the variance, I think, in the game a lot.
Agreed. I actually have a lot of thoughts on this
for it.
little dilemma, and generally become sort of the poster boy for upside chasing and talk about it a lot. And this is why I always keep talking about adapting. Now, this performance that we saw from Mo Salah against Leeds was very similar to the performance that we've seen from Mo Salah 2 or 3 years ago. I don't think he's looked this sharp, this fit, this dangerous in a long time. And I think the main reason for that is because around November or December last season, he was struggling with an injury. And I felt like Klopp played him through that injury. And he had a good break, when the pandemic happened and all of that. And he, again, did look very fresh in Project Restart. But that performance against Leeds caught my eye because every time he had the ball, I was scared not owning him. So personally, people who are thinking about playing the fixtures and selling Mo Salah, this is the adapting that I talk about. You can't predetermine these moves. You can't have preconceived notions when it comes to making such moves because he's looking so sharp and he's playing Kepa, who's possibly the worst keeper in the division. And if Lamps doesn't play Aspi against him, and if he plays Alonso against him, Mo's got another haul in him. And if you're talking about regression to the mean, I feel like Liverpool are due 5 or 6 or 7 penalties this season. So I don't know if I'm going to stick around too much without Mo. I've already made my transfer this week. I haven't got Mo. I'm just going to take it a week at a time. But I'm very glad I have a wildcard in my back pocket because the way Mo is looking right now, I don't think he's going to be avoidable for too long.
Yep. I think big man, you're with me in the Mo Salah as a season keeper camp.
Yeah, I think I agree with you now. Historically, I've loved Salah. This season, I started with the pre-planned sort of transfer in my head that I'd probably sell him for Bruno in Gameweek 2. That plan has probably gone out of the window now. I'm not considering it anymore because Salah looked so sharp. I mean, his stats were incredible. 21 penalty area touches, 8 shots inside the box. I mean, he looked sharp. He looked fit. I don't think I'm going to sell him or even consider selling him now. I fancy him against Arsenal next week as well. Because at home, as we know, he's a beast. He's probably going to score there as well. This week, I still think, despite his form, I think he might struggle against Chelsea. I'm not exactly sure how he's going to do this week because Chelsea post restart were actually second best for big chances conceded. Sorry, at home. So their defense has been pretty tight at home. So I'm not sure how much joy Salah is going to get this week. But away, but next week home to Arsenal, I'm sure he's going to do well.
If he's going to shoot on sight, Kepa's the keeper.
That's just about to say. You don't need a big chance to beat Kepa the way he's playing. I mean, yesterday.
That's true. That's true.
Another thing I'd actually just like to add in case in terms of Mo is one thing I've noticed that has changed in the last 3 or 4 months is his assist output. I feel like he's naturally more aware of his game and creating a lot more chances than he did.
Yes.
I don't think he's as selfish, and I think this has to do a lot with psychology also because when you're not doing so well and when you're not in rhythm, you're kind of trying too hard and you want to get the output in terms of goals scoring that you expect from yourself. Right now, he's in full flow. He looks in form. He looks in rhythm, and that's where I think his natural game is coming to play, which might lead to increased assist output as well.
Yep.
I think I'm talking myself into wildcarding game week 3 and just getting more Salah
No,
into the game.
you're actually right. I mean, it's also worth noting that most of the chances he's creating are big chances. So that's great. That sort of makes him a sort of a 3-dimensional asset when he has like legit assist potential.
Yep, and I think we owe that all to Mane with that whole fight in the Burnley fixture last year.
Yeah, yeah. Lot of. I mean, let's address this because we have had a lot of Mane to more questions.
Yep.
What are your thoughts there?
It's a bit risky giving on 1 week of data because I do expect to like score similarly. It's very risky to move right away. I don't know. I would probably give it another week. Instead, I would probably not move from Mane to Salah. At this point, I'd move from Mane to, like, let's say, Fernandez or a KDB. Try to differentiate over there.
Yeah, I think those that like me that don't own Salah at the moment. See, if you have a straight up move and an easy sell, I wouldn't sell Oba. If you have an easy sell, make the switch. But I think we are blessed in terms of having not so scary fixtures on paper, the next 2 fixtures, and we can take our time, but definitely have a plan to get him in the next 1, 2, 3 weeks because he's looking sharp.
Yeah, Mane is historically better away from home too, so I don't think
Precisely.
that's a move to make this week.
I agree.
Fair point. Good point.
I agree. So that's enough of Salah now. Let's move on to the early whipping boys. Now, before we now get into this, I just want to put a caveat over there. I have some sympathy for the promoted teams this season. There's no crowd. The crowd plays a huge part in early momentum for promoted teams. I think Fulham and West Brom both would have been a lot better if they had the crowd pushing them. And secondly, they're not really able to reinforce as probably they would have liked because of the COVID financial problems. They can't really buy heavily, but it is what it is. And I do think Fulham and West Brom are two of the worst teams we have seen recently, both poor in attack and defense. The obvious whipping boys. The other one I would probably add is West Ham. I had put there's something from the Athletic where they did a survey of all the fans with their regards to their optimism level for the season. West Ham fans were at 8%. I mean, the next highest was at like 40-50%. So that just shows you the mood around West Ham. And that's how they played. So what about
and Newcastle
you
got 15 shots, if I recollect. I mean,
they made
that's
them
a
look
lot
like
for
Barcelona. They made Steve Bruce and Newcastle look like Barcelona.
Yeah, that's crazy. I've got nothing to add here. I think I agree with everything, and I give kudos because I think you made a very important point, and you made this exact point in terms of having a crowd last spot. So well done on that. Also, the only thing I'm monitoring in terms of whipping boys is we spoke about Brighton already, and I want to talk about Sheffield United because they're conceding a lot of chances, and I wonder if they're regressing based on compared to last season, and it's something I'm monitoring closely because then we need to realign our thinking in terms of are Sheffield as compact, tough to play against team this season as well. So just keep an eye on that. I feel like Newcastle is still a defense worth targeting because they don't really look that good in defense. And then there is Palace, and this is an important team worth discussing because I think it brings the captaincy discussion for this week into play as well. So I think we'll address Palace when we're talking about the merits of Oba versus Marshall versus Bruno versus Salah.
Yeah.
Yep. DFF, anything to add here?
Yeah, I just think it's a bit too early to talk about whipping boys, but I mean, from what I see from this week's data, it looks like Fulham, West Brom, and West Ham are the ones to target.
Yep. So now let's just quickly touch upon a topic that's pretty popular in the community now, the Gameweek 3 wildcard. I know that you just mentioned that earlier, LR. What are your thoughts about it?
For those that are okay with dealing with the Game Week 18 and 19 double and blank through free transfers, I feel like Game Week 3 presents a really good opportunity for a wildcard Game Week 3 or 4 if we see enough trends. Now, I'm already starting to see a few trends. I mean, what have we noticed so far? We've noticed that Wolves still look the ideal 5 million defense to have. Jimenez looks like an ideal glue guy at 8.4 and 8.5 in the striker bracket. Everton look like a completely different team, which is reaffirmed with their Game Week 1 performance, and they have a great run of fixtures from Game Week 2, 3 onwards. We'll get to see United and City play this week, and we'll know who the good guys are worth jumping on these teams. And I feel like there's a fair amount of rejigging that you can do. You can judge if Pulisic is hopefully fit this game week, we can judge who the right Chelsea midfielder might be to have, or maybe we were too bullish on Chelsea having these new signings, and I feel like the right time to jump on them is when they have all their midfielders fit. So there's, if you spot enough trends, which I think there are. I mean, Lamptey is jumping out as the best 4.5 defender. McCarthy seemingly looks like a mistake game week 1 in terms of the keeper bracket. If you see enough data by game week 2 or by the end of game week 3, there's a case to wildcard in game week 3 or 4. Because people talk about dealing with blanks and doubles, but if you made correct decisions, and if you get the decisions in game week 4 right, you're able to gain an advantage for 10-12 game weeks, which is a huge bracket. So there is a case to be made.
How many changes do you generally look to do if you have to decide between a pre-wildcard, post-wildcard? How many changes would you look at your team? Okay, I'm going to add 5 players, 7 players. What's the sort of benchmark for that?
Yeah, I think 5 to 7 is a fair number.
What, TFF? Are you on the same boat?
Yeah, I agree. I think 5 to 7 exactly.
I think so. And I think the main appeal of the Game Week 3 wildcard is primarily with 2 teams, Everton and Wolves. That's when the fixture run really goes well, and you can look at adding players like Patricio, Jimenez, Dean, James Rodriguez, DCL. They're all cheap options. I think getting on them early is really could be beneficial. But there's obvious caveat of the transfer window. I would think that's probably the biggest worry if you go early. Certain players could be sold, players could lose positions, but I don't think there's much activity going to happen now.
I mean, Chelsea's and City's fixtures are really, really sort of favorable after Game Week 3 as well. I mean, you look at Chelsea's fixtures, West Brom, Crystal Palace, Southampton, might be worth jumping on a defender from there, from Chelsea.
If we sign another keeper.
Yeah. That's a nice point to make.
Again, see, that's a trend that we spotted. If, I'm glad that the Liverpool game is next, because we need to know what Lampard's thinking is with regards to Reece James, because he looked so good. So again, he's a great 5 million asset that could be a long permanent hold in your defense. So if you spot enough of these trends, and also one thing you need to judge is your own team. If your team is in bad state and you're 3 or 4 important players away from your ideal team, make the move. So it's very subjective to your current team as well.
Yep. I think let's close up hot topics for now, and let's move on now to the teams to watch, and let's have a look at Everton. Why don't you kick us off here, Ella? What are your thoughts on Everton?
We spoke about this, and I'm glad we spoke about this in the preseason pod, because we kind of called this, that we expect Everton to be a completely different team, and it's exactly how it played out. Alan Doucouré strengthened that midfield big time, but it was the James Rodriguez show. I mean, the genuine quality and creativity he adds to that team showed. I mean, I think he created 5 chances, all of them for Richarlison. Great switches of play, which led to them creating more and more. I like that. Also, what's really interesting me is their defense, because I feel like Allen and Doucouré are a very steady pivot, and they seem to have control of the game. And at 5 million, I'm interested in Michael Keane. He's not spoken about a lot, but if they have a good run of fixtures, and I see Everton keeping more than a few clean sheets this season, so he interests me. And if you have more money to spend, Tina at 6 million interests me as well, because he kept quite a few of the set pieces.
I was surprised with that.
Yeah, and we haven't spoken about Richarlison. He looked incredible that game. He had so many chances. Always Ahmed switching the play to him being open, having a one-on-one, trying to dribble past 1 or 2 defenders and taking a shot. He looked really sharp. And I don't mind holding DCL as well, because I feel like the team is going to create chances for him. Absolutely. And he's going to be at the end of it.
Absolutely. So what are your thoughts on James as an FPL option?
That's a very interesting question, because I think he had 1 shot inside the box. Outside of that, he was
two. I think the
2
stats
shots.
say 2 shots.
Yeah. So outside of that, he was primarily the creator, switching play. But I also feel like this isn't enough data again to judge the game, and I'm again very happy that we have a game against West Brom next, because I think that's a perfect kind of game to judge against somebody parking the bus against Everton. But I feel like whatever he does, he'll still hold enough value for the 7.5 million price bracket. I think he's a good pick.
And I think he's not a Modric. A lot of people say that he might be the Modric kind of pre-assister, but you look at his record at his previous clubs, he scored a decent number of goals.
Yeah. It was just first game week. He learned to adapt and play around his teammates as well. I think he's joined the club 4 or 5 days before playing the first game, and
Yep.
he looked on the money.
Yep. So
From here.
TFF, somebody asked this question on Twitter. I want you to answer it. Are Hammers' returns dependent on DCL and Richarlison's finishing ability?
I think so to a large extent because most of the chances he's going to create are for the forwards. And under Ancelotti, I've noticed that Calvert-Lewin usually gets the bulk of the chances. And in this game, I noticed that Richarlison was the one who had the better numbers. So yes, of course, I think Hammers is primarily going to be creating for them. But yeah, as to continue the conversation, I really like the look at Everton as well. I was one of the ones who was sort of doubtful if the new signings would gel and whether or not to jump on any Everton early on. But yeah, they've kind of proved me wrong, and they look really good. Even their defenses has looked decent. So I mean, yeah, even Keane for 5 million might not be a bad option investing in. The fact that Richarlison sort of outnumbered Calvert-Lewin surprised me because that's not usually the trend. Last season, Calvert-Lewin had completely blew him out of the water in terms of underlying numbers. But with James creating 5 chances, all of them for for Richarlison, that tells me that Richarlison might be worth looking at as well. He's often sort of overlooked because he's $1 million expensive than Calvert-Lewin. But yeah, Everton look exciting. I was reading a stat on Twitter as well, which suggested that the 5 chances created by Rodriguez was more than any other Everton player
in the last
created
2 years or something. Yep.
In the last 20 games, in each of the last 20 games last season. So that tells me that their attacking numbers are going to go up.
Yep. I just feel like last season's stats are irrelevant, simply put, when it comes
to a large extent. So what do you guys think about the Ali to James move? Should I do it?
I'd hold for a single game week. Judge what's happening, what the conversation around Ali is on Twitter. We follow a good journalist who generally has a good idea in terms of what's happening. Alistair Gold, for you guys listening. He generally has the inside beat on Spurs. And if it looks like he's going to be starting, then hold. If it looks like he isn't, I think make the switch.
Because I do think the ceiling for James is much higher than Ali because he has so many routes to points. If he's creating 5 chances, taking 2 shots, he has a 20-pointer in him. That's what I really see about James.
Zophar, another thing worth noting is that these kind of players who create loads of chances, they're gonna be doing really well for bonus as well.
Absolutely.
So I mean, one assist and he can sweep the BAPs. So
and his pass completion also is quite high, so he's going to be quite good for bonus. I'm inclined to make the move because I do think the West Brom fixture is worth targeting. The upside is high early on, but I don't think the Saints would be that open.
Fair enough. And another point is that if at all you're set on James in that price bracket, it's worth making the move because if you're going to make a move in terms of a player having a good run of fixtures, always try getting that player at the beginning of the good fixture run because you're increasing the probability and putting them in your favor in terms of the number of balls you catch for that player.
I know I'm jumping topics a little bit here, but I wanted your guys' opinion now. I have both Havertz and Ali. Now, which one would you rather sell? I know who I'm leaning towards, but who would you rather sell?
Ali, absolutely. Yeah,
Me too. Because I do think Havertz is in a team that's obviously on the up, and we are yet to see the best of him. Spurs, not liking the noises around the club in general.
Yeah. Just to add here, I am being a little hypocritical here because I sold Havertz over Ali, but that was for a totally different reason, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah. Of course. Let's not spill the beans just yet. So now, the next team to watch, Liverpool. Let's talk about Liverpool's defense first. What did you guys make of it?
We spoke about this last pod where they seem to have not kept a clean sheet in a really long time, and the Liverpool defense has a few mistakes in them. That said, I wouldn't worry about them too much, especially if you own Trent or Robo. I feel like they're comfortable holes, and people are talking about switching to a Digne. It seems like a luxury move to me because I don't think nobody's going to match the attacking output of the Liverpool fullbacks. Robbo is pretty much like a 7 million winger. The amount of time he's spending in and around the box, not many wingers are doing the same. So it looks like a hold. Don't worry too much about the defensive stats. And the fixtures are coming. I think after the next 2 games, Liverpool have a bunch of fixtures where potential clean sheets could happen. So, and it's a luxury transfer. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. TFF?
Yeah, I agree. As a Robbo and Trent owner, like the look of them attacking wise against Leeds. I won't read too much into the defensive sort of numbers against Leeds because I know they conceded thrice, but I think, as I mentioned earlier, Leeds were very clinical.
4 shots in the box for Liverpool conceded. I've got the graph up here.
And zero big
Yeah,
chances conceded.
0 big chance. Just 4 shots in
it's.
the box and Leeds scored from 3 of them.
I mean, it's also worth mentioning that Robertson was sharing corners again with Trent, and he could have easily had another assist had it not been for a great save from Meslier. I mean, so yeah, I'm not too concerned about winning to Liverpool. I do expect Chelsea to score again this week, but after that, I think the clean sheets will come for Liverpool.
Yep.
This Robbo outperforming Trent is a trend we've seen for a while. Now, let's say you're wildcarding game week 2. Bakar, I want to ask you this question. Would you go Robbo or Trent if you had to go just one?
Ooh.
I would still probably go with Trent because Trent has the extra goal threat, which Robertson doesn't.
Fair point. I agree. I wouldn't still switch yet.
I agree.
Yeah.
Anything more to add on Liverpool in terms of their attack? I don't think we need to beat Salah's drum anymore.
Yeah, I think we spoke about it at length. Let's move to the next team.
Let's watch now Chelsea. What did you guys, before I give my views, what did you guys think about Chelsea?
No, it's your team. You start.
I mean, it was fun. I'm glad we got the win, but honestly, we didn't really, I think, deserve to win. We were quite fortunate with the pass that Alzate made, the deflection for Zuma's goal. So I think it's very much a work in progress. We definitely, but I think what we were really missing primarily yesterday was ball progression, which is what Pulisic and Kovacic provide. We didn't have anyone to drive the ball forward. Havertz was played, I think, in his wrong position. I would have played Cho on the right with Havertz central, Mount on the left. So I think the best is yet to come in terms of Chelsea. But in defensively, I still didn't like the amount of chances we gave up. So defensively, even though James got a lot of points, it's still a wait and watch for me defensively. But in terms of attack, I think the best is yet to come.
What about Timo?
I thought Timo was amazing. It's so good to have a striker with genuine pace up front. I don't remember the last time we had it because we've traditionally always had these holder, like physical strikers, like your Drogbas, your Costas, and all that stuff.
Such a keen runner also.
I mean, he's going to get caught offside a lot this season, but the amount of runs he was making is brilliant. Just the movement is so intelligent.
Yep. It reminds me of Torres when he was at Liverpool.
Yeah, peak Torres.
Yeah. Well, what are your thoughts on Kai? A lot of people are wondering what to do with him, and they're a little distraught and unconvinced after his first game. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, obviously, like I would have liked him to do well, and I think he was played out of his position, but he's only had a week training with the team. So I would still like to keep him at least for the next 2 to 3 fixtures. I wouldn't be rushing to get rid just yet. See how he does in the next Liverpool fixture, and after that we play West Brom. So I think at least till the West Brom fixture is a hold for me.
Yeah, fair enough. I agree. I thought Lampard made some poor decisions. And we read about this on The Athletic where, they said that they'd blend Kai in by starting to play him on the right and then move him central. I just thought he didn't look good enough, and I thought he was sort of isolated in that position. But I think what I really liked is the position that RLC and Bakri played, which was almost sort of as a second striker or drifting in sort of a striker. And I think this position is going to suit Kai Havertz a lot. Personally, I think it's going to be a very tough call between Pulisic and Kai Havertz when both of them are on the pitch. And that's the reason why I sold Kai right now, because I really wanted to get Bruno Fernandes over Marcus Rashford. I had 2 million in the bank to make that move. So for now, I made that switch. If Ali doesn't look like he's going to start the next game week, I might sell him for a hit too. But if you don't have any other problems and if you really don't have a set target in your head, I'd say be patient with Kai Havertz, because as soon as he's going to be moving centrally, as soon as Ziyech is going to be playing in his position and Pulisic is going to be playing on the left-hand side, it's going to be looking like a completely different team, because that position, which is number 10, I think Lampard has designated to be sort of a second striker. And what I also like is just so that Werner likes to drift so much and push onto the left hand side so much, that might leave Kai at the end of so many chances as well, and he might be a goal scorer for that team.
Fair.
Yes, I absolutely agree with what you've said. I mean, I own both Werner and Havertz as well. I'm keeping both. Havertz kind of disappointed me. I was expecting big things from him against Brighton, but I don't have sort of other fires to put out in my team, so I'm just gonna sort of save my move, and I'm going to keep Havertz for now. His fixtures after Liverpool are really good. I won't be too surprised even if he does something against Liverpool.
Yep. What are your thoughts on James?
James is I mean his numbers post restart were really good as well. He was second for big chances created after Robertson. I'm annoyed I didn't start with him because I was bigging him up in my threads. I didn't because I thought he would be at risk when Chilwell will be fit. I thought Aspi and Chilwell will be the first choice
That might
fullbacks.
be the case still. We
But
don't
now
know.
with what we've seen last night, I'm not exactly sure what will happen now. But I mean, I'm sort of disappointed I didn't start with him. He's obviously a good pick to have. I think he'll lose set pieces though when Ziyech comes back for sure.
Definitely.
That's okay. What I really liked about him is in the last 20 minutes of the game, he wasn't actually hogging the wing. He was playing infield a lot. Was that because I think Lamps got another defender to play on that side? What happened there, Zoff?
I fell asleep.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
The game finished
All
at
right.
3 a.m. I was just struggling to stay awake by
Yeah.
that time.
I mean, this was kind of made worse by the fact that a friend of mine pre-deadline was saying that he's gonna pick Reece James, and he was completely sort of convincing me to pick him. And I told him he's gonna get dropped after 2 game weeks, so don't pick him. And then I wake up today to like 15 texts from him saying that James has done really well. And what do you know? And why do you call yourself an expert? So yeah,
Okay.
that's
Yeah, I recommended going without Mo Salah, so I don't know what to add there.
Yep. Here you have it, guys. A board of experts.
Yeah.
Let's just
All right,
move on.
let's.
Budget strikers.
I think I don't have too much to say here.
Let's just
I'll
go through them
make it
really
very
quick.
brief.
Let's just get like a whole cell thing because I think again we are running a bit long on time. So let's just
All
have a
right.
quick look. Let's just touch upon the ones that are really owned heavily. Primarily is Mitro. I think neither of you guys are very keen on Mitro's prospects. So would you hold or sell?
Sell.
TFF?
hold. I still don't think there are better options in that price range. I mean, if you can upgrade him to Wilson, then that's fine. But
But
other
the
than
problem
that,
with
just hold.
Wilson, I think it's good that you mentioned Wilson. We can touch upon him now. There's a good fixture against Brighton, but the next few aren't very good, are they? I think right after Brighton, you have Spurs. I think then you have United, and then you have Burnley. So
Yeah, Burnley's in game week 4. Burnley's in game week
yes,
4.
I remember the next 3 fixtures. These aren't really exactly very good. They're teams that are traditionally good defensively, right?
Yeah.
So
I still think he's going to do well this week and against Burnley. I have this feeling about
I
Wilson.
just spend 0.5 more than Wilson and get DCL. I think he's the striker to get.
I think
in
I
that
agree
price.
with that. I think I totally agree with that. So for me, Mitro is a hold for the next 2 weeks. You can assess it after. So
Yeah.
another popular pick that a lot of us have, Charlie Adams. What do you think about him, TFF?
Che Adams.
Che Adams.
Charlie Adams is my man from back in the day. Che Adams.
Yeah,
Hold,
Che,
hold.
as I said, I was unfortunate. I expect him to score, so hold for me against Spurs.
Yep, I thought he was pretty promising. I like what he offers to the team. It's very different in terms of what Shane Long does. Very physical. He holds up play where he brings others into play. I think he's going to start against Spurs and Burnley at least. I'll give him those 3 fixtures and then assess after.
It was
Bakar, I think
encouraging to see him.
Zoff is cheating with us here. He asked us to give one-word answers. We're giving one-word answers, and then he's going
Oh,
on.
right.
Yeah,
This only happens
it
in
was
players I own though. So it's not going to
It-
happen
it-
going forward.
it was encouraging to see him, play till 80, 85 minutes despite Southampton losing. So that tells me that he's firmly first choice. He won't be sort of hooked early usually.
Right. So let's skip Wilson. We already touched upon him. I like the look of Watkins. We haven't seen him play, but Villa's new striker, I guess not a buy or sell, but obviously one to have on the radar. He scored, I think, over 20 goals, all non-penalty last year. I think Grealish
very
finally has
highly
a striker.
rated.
Very highly rated. Grealish finally has somebody who can finish their chances. So
Yeah.
definitely one to watch. Now the leads forward. Let's just quickly touch upon the leads forward. Would you guys
I think
invest?
I think in 3 or 4 game weeks they might actually be the pick of the lot in the 6 million bracket.
Yep. So the leads forward. What do you guys think? Is it worth investing in Bamford or Rodrigo?
Not at the moment. Wait and watch.
So my problem with that is I think whoever starts is going to get substituted at 30 minutes. Even if Rodrigo starts, he's going to get subbed off at around 60, 65. And
Again, so we don't know, right? We don't have enough information in terms of what's going
Yeah.
to happen there. So
Right.
that's why just wait and watch. If we might get more data, we might see because they spent a lot of money on Rodrigo. That's my only argument. And he's seemingly a lot better than Bamford. So just wait and watch, and you could find a steal here.
Yeah.
At the moment, I feel like in the 6 million to 6.5 bracket, Che and Wilson are the good ones, but ideally spend 0.4 more on DCL if you can.
So I didn't even include DCL in this because he's head and
Yeah.
shoulders, I would guess, above the rest of the crew here.
Yep,
Absolutely.
Right. So now let's have a quick look now at the fixtures. for game week 2. And let's start with the first one. A lot of people are lumping in already. You've got 2 United attackers in your team, Ella. All set for the first game of the season. How are you feeling?
So actually, this is worth talking about because I was thinking about this at length last night because I realized that Bruno Fernandes was close to rising, and I didn't want to be priced out of getting him. Now, that doesn't mean that Marcus Rashford is a bad pick. Just to give you guys my order of preference in terms of United picks, it's Martial first, closely followed by Bruno Fernandes, followed by Rashford. And Greenwood, if he starts, is in a completely different price bracket, who you should get anyway. But we don't know what's going to happen with the transfer window, so just monitor that closely. My issue with Rashford is that he hasn't looked the same player post his injury. He just isn't, he's statistically doing well. He's getting a lot of shots, but they aren't accurate. They aren't target. He isn't finishing his chances. And I also feel like he's a little confused in terms of what his role is. Sometimes I see Solskjaer talking about him as a creator and he's creating a fair amount of chances. But sometimes he's getting in, just running at the defenders and losing the ball, has a lot of wayward passes in him. So, and I saw the highlights of the preseason game that they had against Aston Villa as well. Same problem. He just didn't look as sharp. So I worry a little about him. That said, the pro for Marcus Rashford is he likes to play a lot with Luke Shaw because Williams doesn't really hold the width as much as Luke Shaw does, and they both have a great understanding. So that's the only reason I might go for that. And we could see both of them play as strikers if Greenwood isn't going to start the first game. I feel like Van de Beek might start the first game because Ole might protect Greenwood, and right now he's not training with the first team because of the COVID rules. So just monitor Ole Solskjaer's press conference and see what happens later.
Yep.
Bruno is a great asset. I spoke about it on the last pod as well. He's not a penalty merchant. He's in and around the box. He's building a greater chemistry with his teammates. He has very high assist potential. So I like him a lot. I'm very happy with Bruno and Martial in my team. And people are talking about Palace being very organized and all of that. But they're still lacking 3 first choice defenders, and their 4th first choice defender is Ward, who I don't rate anyway. So even though they park the bus or whatever, if Bruno, Martial, Pogs and Rashford are starting, I think we've enough in us to put 2-3 goals past them.
Yep. TFF, anything to add?
No, this game is all about United attack for me, and like I think Playtroy just summed it up pretty well. I don't have anything to add.
Same here. I think that was a pretty good summary. But so yeah, I wouldn't bring in Greenwood right now either. I think there's also the Sancho cloud hanging over. So
exactly.
That's probably one to avoid. The next one is Southampton Tottenham. But let's just go over this quickly since we want to discuss these teams in length. I just want to mention the scores from the last 3 matches. These teams were under the same management, Hasenhüttl and Mourinho. It was 1-0 to Saints in the same league fixture at St. Mary's. It was 1-1 in the FA Cup. Both teams were at full strength. I think Spurs had some injuries at this time, but otherwise it was 3-2 in the reverse fixture at the replay. It was Spurs scored 3 goals from 3 shots on target, and Southampton took 7. So it looked like a smash and grab there for Spurs. So there's definitely some, like, I think what's interesting there is that Saints have scored in all 3 games.
Yeah, I think this is a bit of a banana skin for Spurs. I'm not exactly confident, but I won't be exactly too surprised if McCarthy gets a haul out of this game. This seems like the kind of game where he could make a lot of saves and maybe even keep a clean sheet.
I'd be more confident about Spurs if Lo Celso was fit. That's the only thing.
When is he back?
No idea. He was close to playing the first game last I read. I'm not very sure about it. Something worth monitoring.
Right, because I think he plays in Ali's position, just behind him. So if he's again fit, then that Ali's history. Right. Let's move on to Everton West Brom. Again, something we've discussed earlier.
I just want to add. I think all of us agree that we predict a comfortable win for Everton. I just want to add a little point here where Barnes was allowed a lot of chances on the left side for West Brom, and Richarlison plays in that position. So I think that this could be fruitful.
Excellent point. This is an excellent point.
And I think one caveat though to keep in mind, West Brom had one of the best away defenses in the championship. So I'm interested to see how they set up away, whether they're less open. But just given the quality they have, I don't see how Everton won't find a way through.
That was surprising. He's never played 3 at the back at last season at all. then he goes and
I
does
think
that
he
in his first
expected
run.
Leicester to go 3 at the back because Rodgers was pretty sneaky in his press conference. He said, I don't mind playing NDD in a back 3 when he drops deep and all that stuff. So I think that threw him off slightly.
Fair, fair.
So Arsenal, West Ham, I think, is it Auba captain for all three of us?
I'm not set on Auba at the moment. Like I mentioned, I think if the four talisman for United are fit, I could see a potentially comfortable win for United because Kouyaté was playing in defense with Scott Tan, and we have Ward. So I wouldn't read too much into the Saints game. I feel like if these guys are fit, then there is a case to be made for the United attackers as well because post restart, United were the better attack than Arsenal. So I personally don't think it's as straightforward a decision. And then I wouldn't rule out captaining Mo Salah as well just because he looks so clinical.
So TFL, I think you're pretty set on Auba, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd also like to add that West Ham were, of all the teams that were in the division last season, basically of all the non-promoted teams this year, they had the worst XGC, expected goals conceded. And Auba at home post restart had the best big chances per game at home. So all the numbers are basically pointing towards an Auba haul. I'm set on Auba this week.
Yep. We're not
Alright.
discussing Chelsea, Liverpool because just a game Chelsea are going to dominate. So let's just not touch upon. Let's just leave that.
A lot of fire. I'm excited for that game.
There's a lot of comments. I think Klopp made some comments about oligarchs and whatnot. So and there's the whole like Lampard Klopp feud from the touchline. So and it doesn't require more fuel. Chelsea, Liverpool, right from the Benitez, Jose days, has always been some bad blood there. Yeah. So it's definitely something I'm excited for.
Yeah. But Lamps has this little ego streak about him, which I quite like. He has this little fire in him. I feel like he'll be desperate to win this one. I'm excited to watch that.
I think Werner also, I think he's quite excited to make an impact because I think he knows that Klopp wanted to sign him. So I think Werner is quite keen on that fixture as well. So do you guys want to discuss anything on the captains any further or should we move on to clean sheets?
Let's move on to clean sheets.
Yeah, let's move on.
So what do you guys like? Let's start with your picks for the clean sheets TFF. Why don't you kick us off?
Okay, so I think Leeds I think are a very good shout. Everton is another one I really like. Arsenal, those three, and I'd probably pick United. So those are the four ones I really like this week.
Yep. I've got those, and I think I've got Leicester versus Burnley here too. But the problem is I don't know if NDD can handle the likes of Wood, a more physical striker.
Yeah.
So I have nothing to add here. I agree with you guys.
I think it's pretty much like this. I would say at least 3 or 4 of these clean sheets look pretty nailed on, but you never know. Right. The next section, TFF, is all you. Why don't you walk us through the top stats for the game week ahead?
Okay, so I'll start with the Everton attack. The first stat I have is that 5 chances created by James Rodriguez was the highest among all players to play this game week. Richarlison actually, I mentioned earlier that Richarlison actually had the better stats as compared to Calvert-Lewin. So he actually outnumbered him for shots inside the box 5-2, penalty area touches 9-2, and big chances 2v0. And as earlier Riser pointed out that West Brom conceded the majority of their chances down their right. So there's a very good chance that Richarlison could be one for looking at in terms of haul this week. The second stat I have is for the Arsenal defense. Arsenal conceded just one shot inside the box against Fulham. They had a sort of really impressive XGC. It was worth noting that West Ham created no big chances against Newcastle, which particularly was particularly noteworthy to me, and it stood out because Newcastle were third worst for big chances conceded last year. So West Ham creating no big chances at home against a defense which isn't so good, it kind of stood out, and it sort of makes me suggest that another Arsenal clean sheet against West Ham might be on the cards. The third stat I have for you is a bit more controversial, and I'm sure this is going to raise a few eyebrows. But I think that Martial and Rashford are probably better picks than Bruno this week. I say that because post restart, when all three of them started together at home, Martial and Rashford had far better numbers in terms of shots inside the box, big chances created. So I think if you're looking to get a United asset this week, Martial and Rashford are the ones to get. Yep. So that's it.
Yep. So next section, we all pick our differentials for this week. FYI, LR tried to cheat again. He tried to slide in Sterling as a differential. I wasn't having any of it. So he's gone with Keane. Why don't you tell us more about your pick?
We spoke about this at length. I feel like
Yeah, that's true.
the Everton defense is an underrated defense. He's an underrated 5 million pick, and I think he's going to clock more than a few clean sheets.
Yep. Bakar, Lacazette.
Yeah, Lacazette for me, as I've already said, West Ham, conceding big chances. XGC is poor. I expect the Arsenal striker to get chances. Lacazette scored, so he's going to start. He's my differential.
Yep. I've gone for Watkins on the basis I think he's going to be a talisman for Villa, and I didn't like what I saw of Sheffield. I think Villa will start off the campaign with a win. Shout out to our man Swan from our group chat.
He's delighted. Grealish also staying. Good news for them.
Yep. I think Villa, they bought very smart. I think rather than buying obscure players from French leagues and all that stuff, I think now they're buying players from within the league and from the championship. I think it's a much wiser transfer policy in general.
I don't see them in a relegation scrap this season.
Me too, especially with Fulham and West Brom around.
Yes.
So let's just have now a quick rule, guys. Quick look at your teams now. First, we're going to look at your team, Ella. Why don't you walk us through?
So my team is McCarthy, Trent, Dyer, White, who's a part of my rotation with Walker Peters. I'm pretty confident playing White. I thought Brighton looked good in defense. In midfield, I have Aubameyang, Saint Max, Bruno Fernandes, who I got for Kai Havertz, and Dele Alli. So, like I mentioned earlier, it was a very difficult decision in terms of whether I had 2 million in the bank, so whether I should sell Dele for Rashford or Kai for Fernandes. And I felt like giving myself 2 or 3 weeks in terms of when the entire Chelsea midfield is fit and playing together, and actually assess who's the right Chelsea midfield asset to jump on. And I was convinced that Bruno was the better asset compared to Rashford, just because of Rashford's poor streak of form since the project restart. So that's why I went for Fernandes. And I have Calvert-Lewin, Timo Werner, and Martial in attack. I'm feeling a lot more better about my team this season because familiar territory, having Fernandes and Martial, who I owned for most part of last season as well. My captain at the moment is Aubameyang, but traditionally I've always captained the United player in the first game of the season. So I think I'll probably see hard ruling overhead in this case.
I think it'll be Marshall for you, not Bruno, right?
If at all, Tony. He's my guy.
Yep. I think your team is really set up this week to take advantage in terms of differentials. You've got two United attackers. You've got Calvert-Lewin in there. So these are players not many people will have. So it's a good potential, I think, to take advantage over there. Moving on to your team.
As long as Mo is quiet.
As long as Mo is quiet. He isn't getting anything against Chelsea. Let's move on now to Big Man's team. Big Man, go ahead.
So as you can see, my team, I mean, I don't really exactly like the look of my team this week because most of my players are playing each other. You can see Trent
you have Alexander and Robertson who are going to get negative points.
Versus Havertz and Werner. And then there's Mitrovic against Ayling. This is basically a week for damage limitation for my team. I have Steer starting in goal because, but I expect Martinez to start. I don't really think Steer is going to play. McCarthy is going to come on anyways. I have Dyer benched in my team because, as I said earlier, I don't really rate this Spurs defense away from home that much. Their numbers aren't great. I'm fairly convinced that Southampton will score, and I'm hoping it will be Adams, who I have in my 11. Other than that, I have Justin, Ayling. They look good for clean sheets. Salah is going to stay. I don't think I'll be spending his transfer on this team. So, that's basically it.
Yep. I think moving on to my team, it's actually very similar to yours, I think. I think the only difference there, instead of Robertson, I have currently Ali in there, who will probably make way for James. Otherwise, I think it's also the decision regarding Steer. I do think Steer will get just this one game because Martinez hasn't signed yet. I think we are recording this on a Tuesday. We'll probably give him a couple of games at least a couple of days, couple of training sessions to bed in. So Steer's worth playing, but at the same time, I do think Southampton can keep a clean sheet against Spurs. It's not out of the question. So I'm not sure that I want to go Steer. That's a decision I'll probably leave till late. But all our captain is fairly simple. Everything else pretty much speaks for itself. Now let's move on to the Q&A. LR,
all right.
You got this section.
Yep, I'll be directing at you guys. The first question we have is from Harry Satarov at HK Saratov. Was Digna overlooked? Personally, I considered him, but wrote him off on the assumption that James Rodriguez would take set pieces off him. Zoff, why don't you answer this one?
I expected him to lose set pieces too, honestly, but it's only one game week. We don't really know how teams would perform. So I wouldn't say that you have really overlooked anyone or beat yourself up about it because there's literally been no preseason. There's been no indicators of form. So it's only now game week 1 is probably the biggest information reveal of the season. So I really don't think you should beat yourself up about it. But he's a good pick to get in now that how solid Everton are looking with Allen.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, the next question we have is from Khurram underscore Arif. I'll take this one. Do you see Saliba replacing Holden in the Arsenal backline? I think Arteta wanted to not sell Holding for a reason, and I wouldn't assume anything. Just go with what you see. And at the moment, I wouldn't buy either. If you wanted to go Arsenal, buy surer things like Tierney or Gabriel, because you don't want to spend transfers in defense. Gather 2 weeks or 3 weeks of data before going there. And another question he has is, do we bring in Everton assets early or wait to get a bigger sample of data? Their good fixture run starts this week, Kuram, so get them.
Yep.
Next question is for Big Man. It's from Shield underscore up the Reds underscore 1892. When does one know there's a need to wildcard, Big Man?
Basically, it just depends on the number of injuries in the team when the team needs it. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule on when to wildcard. It depends on, it's a very subjective question. Whenever you think there's an opportunity to go for it, then just go for it. For example, when I look at my squad and I see 3 or 4 spots in the 11 where I can sort of make up ground by going for differentials, that's when I usually wildcard. Or when I have a large number of injuries or suspensions in my team, that's when I wildcard personally.
Good answer. Next question is for Zoff. It's from FPL Balor @FPL is live. Can you please take a deeper look at the Leeds budget midfielders, please?
Yep. So I did a bit of research on this earlier. Now, again, I don't think there's one standout midfielder, but it's worth mentioning that Harrison created the most big chances for them last season. He featured in every single game. Now, that's something that I really like. But just keep in mind, as I mentioned earlier, he will miss game week 4 as he's on loan from Man City. The other option is Pablo Hernandez, who got 9 goals and 9 assists, the most contributions. But I do think age is going to catch up to him at this level. But again, I don't think there's a bad pick, but you have to be patient with them because there's really no clear talisman. But if I had to pick one, I think it would be Harrison.
All right, I agree with that answer. Next question is something I'll take. It's from @FPL Kent. What do we do with the Liverpool defensive assets? Trent is very expensive and looked bad versus Leeds. I think it deserves patience. He's got FPL pedigree from the last 2 years, and it is a fitness thing. I think he'll be sharper and sharper by the week. And if you sell him right now, I think you'll want him back in 3 or 4 weeks, and you don't want to spend transfers there. So hold, in my opinion.
Yep.
The next question is for Bakar. It's from Craig Kemp 32. Is there a player you want next week? If there is a player you want next week, would you get them this week to avoid a probable price rise?
I don't think I look at it that way. I mean, if he's talking about the same game week, then yes, early on I like playing more aggressively, because
I think he's talking about the game week after.
If he's talking about the game week after, then no. Just for the sake of a price rise, if he has a bad fixture this week, I won't suggest getting him for Or I personally like playing the fixtures over the fact or over player rises. Yeah. Price rises can they can come with form. That's something which I don't exactly look forward to.
Yeah, and also if I think he's worried about whether he's not able to afford the player. Craig, I just like to say that you can't predetermine such stuff, and the amount of information that you gather in one game week, your opinion might be different next game week. So don't worry too much about it. Play every week as it comes.
Yep.
All right. The next question is for Zoff. It's from Ryan Lee 9969. What are your thoughts on Sadio Mane? Hold, moves sideways to Salah, sell for another team's assets? Would love to hear your thoughts on him.
I would hold, I think, if you own him. I think as we mentioned earlier, he's better on the road and 3 of the next 4 road games are away. If you're really keen on moving him, I wouldn't necessarily move him to Salah primarily because of what we discussed, Salah's home record. I would probably be tempted, if anything, to jump on Bruno, get ahead of the pack a little bit.
All right. Next question is from our friend FPL Ferry. He's asking me who didn't manage to produce FPL returns but impressed on the eye and will be on your radar over the coming weeks. My answer there is Richarlison. I think that's a pretty easy one. He's got a good enough fixtures. He had the stats. He looks sharp. It's a good one. Next question is for Bakar. How do you translate data from FFS to useful information? This question is from Vinay Thorat @Win8T26. I've used my instincts last season, but it's time I'm thinking of using statistical data to supplement my gut. That man, why don't you tell us?
Yeah, so personally, I use a core group of stats such as big chances, XG, and shots inside the box when looking at player statistics. The second thing I look at is the team statistics, attacking statistics for the team he plays for, and defensive statistics for the team he plays against. When I'm looking at an attacker, because that tells me, how kind of what kind of a defense he's facing, what kind of attack his team has. So I mean, when you put all these teams together, all of these things together, that helps you sort of make an informed decision, and that's how I use stats to make my decisions. They don't always work out, but more often than not, you'll notice that things will go your way.
You have to trust the process. I
Alright.
mean, you have certain data, you have certain ways of doing it. Sometimes it
Absolutely,
works,
absolutely.
doesn't.
Yep.
Okay, the last question for the day. This is from a friend from the community, FPL_AA33. You shout out to him because actually I didn't know about the Ranveer Singh League, which I won last season. And he pointed out to me and told me you should join it. And because of him, I might get to watch a game in the UK. So thank you, AA33. Questions for you, Zoff. Are Palace really a target fixture like many think? Many saying they had one of the worst XTC post restart, but they also had the worst fixture run in terms of they're facing Liverpool, United, Chelsea, Spurs, Leicester, and Wolves in 6 of the last games.
So
What are your thoughts of?
I think it's a bit of a difficult. I did think they were a fixture to target early on, primarily because of the injuries in defense and how poor they were over the restart. But again, Hodgson is a bit like Tony Pulis. After his teams hit 40 points, they just fall off a cliff in terms of motivation, commitment, and all that stuff. So right now, it's a different thing. I believe a bit in momentum. I think teams that have won will definitely carry some momentum into the next weekend. So it's primarily the reason I'm not rushing into buying Man United assets. I don't think Palace will roll over.
All right. I think that's it for the
Yep.
questions, and I think that's it for
That's
this
for the pod. That's not
pod.
bad. Kept it under
Not-
90 minutes.
Yes, I think that was the target. We assumed it would be a long one, but I was pretty happy. I think we covered a lot of ground. Also, I've reversed. I've seen a few videos, and I'd like to remind you guys that if you guys haven't already liked, shared, or subscribed our videos, please do and hit the bell icon. Everybody says they should hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our next video is uploaded. That's it from our end. Hopefully, I've closed the gap on these two next game week, and Mo's not destroyed another weekend of mine. Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Cheers, guys. See you. Bye bye.
Thanks for watching.